Welcome back to the channel. It's been a little bit of time, but we're back and we got a lot to go over today. We're going to do a little bit of news to get you started about Bitcoin, just a few articles on sentiment. Then we're going to do Bitcoin analysis. We're going to do EGLD analysis. And the theme of this is going to be to really figure out, are we too late to the game? For anyone who's coming in new to these assets, are you too late? Are you early enough? What can you expect? We're going to find out. Okay. Next thing I want to let you know real quick is the interview with Sever from Elrond Network is going to be coming by September the 17th. So keep an eye out for that. Should be released before the 17th unless any unforeseen delays come up, which I don't think they will. So we should be fine with that. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Check the description for the Twitter link. You get a lot of updates from me there because I'm not one of these YouTubers that does videos every day. I do it when I can, when I have time to do it, and I do it when things in the market look very interesting. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, we're going to switch over directly to the news. All right, here we go. So the first thing I want to show you guys is this article here. All right, it says Marathon Digital Holding purchases 30,000 additional Bitcoin miners. North American Bitcoin mining farm Marathon Digital is growing its fleet with 30,000 new miners. The Antminer S19J Pro miners come at a price point of $120.7 million and are expected for delivery between January and June 2022. Once delivered and deployed, the rigs will expand Marathon's mining arsenal to 133,000 machines, which will be able to mine at a hash rate of over 13.3 exahashes per second. This is an insane development because this is a huge investment coming into Marathon, and we know that a lot of new investors have gotten into Marathon. I believe Fidelity is one of them that's invested in this company. So you're starting to see that institutional money coming into Bitcoin mining rather than coming in directly into buying Bitcoin. I think eventually you're going to see both, but this is a way to get exposure to Bitcoin, and some of them are doing it. So we are going to see some very interesting developments come from this, because when you make a move like this, when Marathon Digital decides to expand by this much by a certain point in time, well, now there are other mining companies that are going to want to try to keep up, and you're likely going to see them all growing to some degree. So keep that in mind. We'll keep an eye on what happens with this. Next article. El Salvador Congress backs $150 million fund for Bitcoin ahead of adoption. It was in favor, 64 votes to 14th. Congress has approved it. So it says here, El Salvador's Congress on Tuesday approved a law to create a $150 million fund to facilitate conversions from Bitcoin to US dollars ahead of the Central American country's planned adoption of the cryptocurrency as a legal tender next week. It says the purpose of this law is to financially support the alternatives that the state provides, meaning Bitcoin, without prejudice to private initiatives that allow the user to carry out the automatic and instantaneous convertibility of Bitcoin to the US dollar. So this is really cool. They have a government digital wallet app called Chivo, and this is essentially going to be the liquidity service behind it, allowing transactions between Bitcoin and the US dollar to happen very quickly. And more than likely, it'll be something like this, right? The government will have their own wallet set up to some degree. Everything through the app is sent to the government. The exchange rate then transfers the liquidity back to the person. They hold the Bitcoin, and they end up with Bitcoin and liquidity and able to convert both ways. This could end up being a way for them to accumulate even more Bitcoin, because if the Bitcoin they receive as conversions, if they just continue to hold it and the value rises, just over time, the value of the fund will continue to rise just as Bitcoin does. So it's quite interesting. We're going to see how this plays out. Very interesting development. Then we see here, Cuba is set to recognize Bitcoin as a payment method. We'll just go over this a little bit. This is detailed. Okay, so Cuba is set to recognize and regulate Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as a means of payment. This is detailed in a Ministry of Justice resolution published on Thursday. The resolution is signed by the central bank's minister-president, and it gives her name. So basically, remittances to Cuba right now are estimated to be around 2 to 3 billion a year. And if they start accepting Bitcoin as a payment system, which they are doing now, you're going to see then a ton more transactional usage coming into the Bitcoin blockchain. So another very interesting thing to see, and I think this is just the beginning. We're going to see this a lot more. Central America is taking advantage of a decentralized banking system that doesn't have them beholden to anyone. It doesn't require massive amounts of investments to start using. and they're starting to take advantage of it. They're starting to see that. So growth is going to continue to increase in my opinion. All right, that's everything for the news. Let's jump right into the TA. So we're looking at the Bitcoin chart right now. We're going to go into our normal technical analysis view. Okay, the first thing to note is what I've just showed you has essentially given you an idea of where the market's going. You're seeing more money coming into mining. You're seeing Cuba starting to get ready to accept this as a Bitcoin payment system. You're seeing El Salvador create a fund to facilitate the liquidity transfer between Bitcoin and US dollars much more quickly and instantaneously for their citizens. You're seeing a lot happen as far as growth and usability and adoption. That's what's occurring here. At the same time, what are you seeing with the price? You're seeing with the price now that it's been steadily on this channel. This is a daily chart, okay? So on the daily chart, it's been steadily over the 20 exponential moving average. The price has bounced off of it every time it's hit, and now we are trading in this channel here. So if you look at this as a smaller channel, this is between our regression line and between the median line of our Fibonacci retracement. And we're hitting a very critical area. We already hit resistance once on this red line here. We have hit resistance on it again. So we want to see this get broken at some point. We want to see us break above that 51K level. If we break above that level, there's a good chance that we shoot up to around 44, and then we may come down and consolidate again to flip this line into support. That would be the most likely scenario. You could end up having some major bullish news coming and pushing the price up way further, or you could have the opposite, some bearish news coming, scaring people and pushing the price lower. Now, if that occurs, if we're looking on the downside, I'm looking at 44,500 roughly to be a bottom target. And the reason I'm saying that's a bottom target, it's the more likely bottom target, is because we have not on the daily chart gone below that in quite some time. And that tends to signal that you are now in a fairly significant uptrend. If that continues, then I would think a drop down to this moving average would be enough of selling pressure to start pushing the price back up, right? The sell pressure would start to diminish by then, and the price should be bought up again, as people would be looking at 44 or 45K as a discount from where it is now. So keep that in mind. The complete bottom target right now would be around 40K or 41K, because that's where our 200 exponential is. It on the daily chart would, that would indicate that we are in a consolidation. If we drop below that, then we could be switching back into a downtrend. So keep an eye. I don't think it's likely that we see the price go below 44, even if it does get bearish. I think that overall is the more unlikely scenario. I think the more likely scenario is that we trade sideways for another day or two, and by September the 6th or 7th at the most, we push past the 51K level and we start trading kind of in a range like this. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw some movement like this, back down to 49, followed by an uptrend taking us towards 50K, kind of putting in another top like we saw here. That's definitely a possibility. I think it's likely we see something like that, because right now adoption is growing. Adoption's growing, and what's happening? The supply is just getting bought up. It's getting diminished. We saw that occur all the way from 29,000 back to 50,000. That's why we've had this huge recovery. When we came down here, we had a lot of sell pressure coming in. Suddenly, the buy pressure came in and outweighed the sell pressure, and that shows us that we were in a supply shock. And that supply shock has not gone anywhere, because as demand increases, that supply is not going to increase. It's going to continue to diminish. So keep that in mind right now. I think that it is definitely not too late for Bitcoin. I think right now, Bitcoin fair value should be above 150,000, possibly even above 200,000, maybe somewhere between 200 and 250,000. Now, the reason I put it there is because of what's happening in the world, right? All the currencies in the world are being devalued. At the same time, commodity prices are shooting up, which means that inflation has nowhere to go but up. Even if the governments of the world, starting with the United States, decided they wanted to fix inflation, it's not going to happen immediately. They've printed so much money that all they could do right now is slow it down, right? So things aren't going to go back to normal, and people are still going to be flying out of the US dollar. When it comes to investments, they're going to want investments that appreciate, not a fiat currency that is being devalued. So people are going to figure that out over time, and eventually, once you start learning about this, you end up at Bitcoin, because once you realize that you need a solid inflation hedge that you can quickly transact with, I mean, it's the best option. And I think we're going to continue to see that. The financial banking side of it coming from countries like El Salvador, Cuba, and other places, well, that's just going to add more to the supply shock. That's what's going to happen. It's going to add more value to the network. Okay, so that is pretty much it for Bitcoin. I think in the short term, that's what you need to know. We're looking for a move in the next few days to take us up to the 55K level. If we do not see that, and we continue to move sideways here, well, then it's possible that if we just continue straight sideways, we could have an even bigger burst depending on whether the price gets constricted. We could also even have a drop at that point. So if by September 6th, September 7th, you're not seeing the price break into the 51K zone, I would stay ready for a drop to about 44 or a pump all the way to 55. So and I know it's it's not a ton of information to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but those are the ranges. So if I'm a buyer, I'm looking to buy at around 44, 45 at the bottom. And if I'm a short-term seller, then I may be looking to sell at 55K and rebuy lower if I'm trading. But I'm not trading, I'm accumulating. So for me, I'm looking for those bottom targets. And that's kind of where my bottom target is right now, around 44 to 45K, somewhere in there. Okay, let's move on to EGLD. We've already done Bitcoin for about 10 minutes. Now, EGLD, the question here is kind of similar, right? Am I too late? It's always something that I'm hearing. I get people DMing me and asking me for personal trading advice and stuff. And I don't do that. I don't give people personal trading advice. I come on here and I just give you technical analysis. If you want to use it, great. If you don't want to use it, that's up to you. So basically, what I want to look at here with EGLD, well, first of all, we're going to look at in green. That's a prediction I made a couple of weeks ago. That prediction has been fairly accurate right now. And as we were getting down to this level at around 141, I made my next purchase. I took the DCA that I was going to do over a few weeks and I just did it in one shot because I sensed that we were going to see that breakout coming. And I let you guys know about that. If you follow me on Twitter, I told you that the charts were very, very much pointing towards a breakout. And the main reason I thought that was on the daily and the 4-hour. If you look down here, basically what happened on around August the 28th, August the 29th, is we broke above this 45 level on the RSI. Okay, so you can see that there. We broke above it. Price was sitting at around 138, 139. I was watching it pretty close. And then I saw us make a quick move where we came back and we hit support on it. Now, once we hit support on that 45 level, I was like, okay, wait a minute. If we're hitting support here, then that means we may be shifting into an uptrend. And then I also noticed on the MACD down at the bottom, you see that the blue line crossed over the orange line. When that happens, that's a bullish cross. That's showing us that we are now seeing bullish momentum flow into the asset. So we broke above the 45 level, have a bullish cross on the MACD, and historically that has flipped. Once we flip this 45 level into a support line instead of resistance, that's usually indicating that we are now in a new uptrend. And I thought, okay, I don't think we have much time. I think it's going to break out. So I just took 3 weeks worth of DCA and did it at one shot. Turned out to be a great decision. So if you follow me on Twitter, you would have gotten that info. But now basically what I'm looking at is honestly what's a very nice chart. This is on the 4-hour. And on the 4-hour, what we're seeing is all the moving averages have come into perfect positions. We have them all in the order that they're supposed to be. You have your 20 exponential, 50, 100, and 200. We ended up having golden crosses on each of these quite some time ago. And if you look at the daily chart, you basically have the same thing. You've had golden crosses everywhere, in August, telling us that the price was going to start moving. So we predicted it was going to go slightly parabolic once it bounced off of this line. So that's how we got the prediction, right? On the daily chart, we looked at what was happening with the 20 exponential moving average. And when we saw that we were coming back and getting support on it, that's when I was like, okay, we're going to see a move similar to what we saw here. We're going to see an uptrend come out of this. That's where this prediction came from. That's exactly what we're seeing. It's not moving quite as fast, at least now over the last 2 days, as the prediction. So is it going to hit $229 by September the 6th? I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to see a big move above 200 sometime soon, hopefully this weekend. Otherwise, we may continue going sideways and it may be a bit longer until we hit that 200 level. So keep that in mind. Right now, I overall do not think it's too late to get into EGLD. In fact, I think it's very, very early to get into EGLD. The interesting thing about EGLD is, from a technology perspective, it is better than Ethereum. It is better than Cardano. It can scale more. It can do everything at lower energy costs, lower transaction fees, and it has high scalability. I mean, to the point where the funny thing about Elrond is, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to go into that because it's something I'll be discussing with Sever, but something related to decentralization and scaling and, TPS. So we'll go into all that when we speak to him. But anyways, what you're seeing here is you're seeing an asset that is going back into a level where it's not even at its all-time high. It's not even close to it. Well, I mean, it is somewhat close to it, but it's not 100%, right? We're at 176 right now. The previous all-time high is at 251. That's still a massive move up to get to the previous all-time high. Now, the interesting thing about this is the way that it's moving is that it's getting accumulation into a bull phase after a massive consolidation. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing this huge rise. Everyone was in profit. You see all this selling. Now you have some people not in profit, and you have a lot of people that have taken profits, and now you're having accumulation again. As accumulation occurs, well, keep in mind what's happening. Right? Ethereum is nearly unusable for most people. I mean, most people, if they tell you how they use Ethereum, it's going to be, I buy it and hold it, right? That's what they're doing. They want to see the price go up and they want to sell it for more. But when it comes to actually doing things like creating NFTs, using DEXs, anything like that, most people aren't doing it because it costs too much. The fees are way too high. Once the Maiar DEX is out and supports all of this and gives you the power to do it from your phone and just platform-wise being the most integrated, like being a blockchain capable of doing everything Ethereum and Cardano are, but having the interface of something like PayPal, it's a very, very logical progression, but also a way to get a ton of users because it's going to take market share from these other assets. So I think it's very early to get into EGLD. I think a lot of people have not realized what exactly is happening with it because there's not like a significant amount of marketing. And then there's a lot of knowledge that you need to understand why it's a good investment. And that comes with understanding the blockchain. Once you understand the technology, well, then as an IT professional or an infrastructure professional or a software developer, it's pretty easy to see the value there, right? That's why people work on the project. Like you see some of the highest amounts of GitHub commits from the Elrond team. They are working hard. On top of that, if you've tested it, the DEX is beautiful. This is a great interface. And once that comes out and more functionality comes into it, I think these prices will be extremely cheap for Elrond. Keep in mind, it also has an incredible monetary policy, very similar to something like Bitcoin, and it's proof of stake. About 61% of the supply is staked. So you only have 40% of the supply available. So it actually, in a sense, is a little bit more scarce than Bitcoin because so much of the supply goes into staking as soon as it's bought for yield. You can only get that yield with Bitcoin with like BlockFi or something, and their interest rates suck right now. So keep it in mind, there's a lot of reasons why Elrond can become massively huge and is severely undervalued, probably the most right now, because just think of it this way. For Elrond to have the same value as Ethereum, I think the price of Elrond would have to be, somewhere in the 20,000s. So, and right now it's at a point where 6 months from now or whenever the DEX is released and all these features come out, it's going to be more functionally usable than Ethereum because you're actually going to be able to do things on there that you're willing to pay for. Right now, I'm not willing to create NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain because it's too expensive. It's too expensive. It'll cost me hundreds of dollars just to create an NFT. Whereas when it's ready for Elrond, it might cost me less than $1, or maybe even pennies. So we're going to end up seeing the ability of value to be transacted without value to be stolen in part of that transaction. I am looking in the next few days to see us break above 200. That's the key. Downside targets for EGLD right now are sitting at around, lowest being around 130, more logically being around 150. Okay, that's because we have definitely come back to this level numerous times to test it. So if you look at this blue line, all right, focus on that. We have broken above it, and we've come down and tested it twice. We can easily come down and test it again. But remember, the price can move up to 200, consolidate there. The moving average would continue moving up, and then our bottom target may only be 180, which is higher than we are now. So keep an eye on how these are progressing. Always know that a bearish turn could take us to the next moving average, which in this case is 130. Know those as the downside targets, but I'll keep it real here. If the DEX gets released anytime soon, or if more marketing comes into Elrond, the price could just balloon so quickly because of the supply shock. So much of the supply is locked into staking. More people come into an asset like this, it has nothing to do but appreciate. So keep it in mind. I think it's quite interesting. Right now on the daily chart, the only concern I have is the RSI is slightly overextended. Not too bad, but right now everything is looking good. Even more consolidation is fine, but seeing a move up would not surprise me. So let's keep an eye on this prediction, see how it works out in the next few days. We'll have an update soon. Thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you guys in a bit. Keep your eye on the channel. More content's coming. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. I'll catch you later. Peace.